If God could use a 10-year-old bus rider who was so nervous that he literally threw the track, then God can use you. Hi, my name is Alan Miller. I'm the bus director at Faith Baptist Church in Bourbonnais, Illinois, and I serve as a bus captain in Kankakee, Illinois. And I have a testimony of how one track handed by a bus rider made a big difference in the life of a teenage girl. It was back in the month of April that our bus ministry was having Great Commission Sunday, and we were encouraging the bus riders to take this tract, which says 7 questions boys and girls ask, and they were challenged to give that tract to a friend or a neighbor or somebody that they could get in contact with on that Saturday. So we went over to Oak Street in Kankakee, and we're visiting the regulars, and we have a 10-year-old boy named Douglas who's very faithful on the bus, and we handed Douglas this tract and asked him to give it to someone, and Douglas decided that he would give it to his cousin Adriana. So Douglas walked over to Adriana's room, and Adriana is like a sister to Douglas because Douglas's parents took Adriana in a couple of years ago because her parent passed away. And so Douglas was very nervous, and instead of knocking on Adriana's door, he opened the door abruptly and saw her standing there and just threw the tract at her and ran away. And Adriana was a little bit puzzled, and she reached down, picked up the tract, and she began to read the questions in the tract. The first question: who is God? Who is Jesus? Who is the devil? Where did we come from? What is sin? What happens when people die? And how can you go to heaven? And Adriana read this tract several times and decided that she wanted to know the answers to those 7 questions. And she decided that she was going to get up the next day and get dressed up and get on the bus with Douglas. So she came to church and listened very attentively during the teen service. And after the teen service, the teenagers went to the gymnasium and played basketball. And Adriana was just sitting there watching the other teenagers play. And one of the lady workers saw her just sitting there watching, knew that she was a visitor. And a bus captain came over and asked that lady worker if she would witness to her. And Miss Aaron witnessed to Adriana, and Adriana was very open, and she gladly trusted Christ as her Savior. And it was a simple tract that was geared for young people that helped her start to think about God, start to think about the gospel. And 2 weeks after that, she followed the Lord in baptism, and several of her family members came for the baptism. And I'm so excited that Douglas was willing to take a gospel tract and get it to a family member. And Douglas literally threw the tract at her, but God was still able to use that. And Adriana came to church and got saved, and God used a gospel tract in that process. So I just want to encourage you to use gospel tracts. If God could use a 10-year-old bus rider who was so nervous that he literally threw the tract, then God can use you. If we give out a tract, we're giving out the plan of salvation, the gospel, and God can certainly use it to see folks come to church and to see folks saved. I also want to highly recommend Bible Tracts Incorporated. Their tracts are very helpful tools, and if you're in children's ministry, I encourage you to get tracts that are geared for reaching children and teenagers and to use them, pass them out. Encourage, if you work on a bus route, talk to your bus riders and your teenagers that ride the bus about carrying tracts with them, passing out tracts, because God still uses gospel tracts to see people saved.